Joe Hayward for it. Got anything you want to make comment about that?
We went over it a few times. We'd like to move forward. It's now March, of course, June 31st, the end of my fiscal year. So I'd like to move forward with the truck. It's probably going to take about 4 to 6 weeks to come in, and then I have to have the bed built after that, so.
Anybody want to make a motion to proceed?
You've gotten your informal bids.
Still working on that. I have one in so far. I'm waiting for Pummel, and,
Pummel Supply and Sale.
yeah, Pummel's got one. Kenzie already gave me theirs, and, can't remember the name of the fabrication place just out of town. Dion Products is put in one as well. That's for the bed. I went on the Oregon State, piggybacked on
So
that.
this decision is to buy the truck
Just the truck.
on the
Just
state
truck.
bid?
Just the truck.
On the state bid, okay.
I'd make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 1-ton Ford F-Series Super Duty truck through the Oregon State Purchasing System from Joe Hayward Ford in Dallas, in the amount of $26,190.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. Discussion with the Sheridan Municipal, discussion on the Sheridan Municipal Code, Chapter 13.16, cross connections.
It looks like I did some research on the cross connection program, and I know you guys have been reviewing some code. The cross connection in particular was done in '93, it looks like. There is specifically one thing in there in section 1316.050, installation requirements. Item number 0 or O, all new construction shall install an approved backflow device at the service connection. That is not in the current order OAR. At some point, we're probably gonna review the entire code, but currently that is definitely out of the standard of Oregon. So that I was hoping to strike tonight.
We can't strike it tonight because we don't have an ordinance put together, but council could give you direction, could give direction to
We can put that
proceed in that
agenda,
direction.
correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Why was it put in originally?
I don't know. This ordinance was one that came from a consulting firm that the city hired to propose a draft ordinance at that time. It was being used, widely used, and they were going around. It was shortly after the state mandated connection control ordinances, and this model ordinance came as a result of the particular consulting company that the city retained. So I don't know the reason is the answer.
Well, the birth of the cross connection program was right around this time. And
Yes.
there was a lot of interpretations on the OARs on the books. This isn't uncommon. A lot of cities do have this. They have stricken that particular part out of theirs. There are some instances on the coast where some cities had some issues with this particular ordinance. And that's kind of what I was looking to get rid of, that part. It's also, it's a cost on the city.
That's terrible. Is it no longer a state ordinance?
I don't think it.
I don't think it ever was.
I don't
It
think
wasn't-
I don't
It's
think
never
the
done.
state law ever said that every house that was constructed had to have cross connection control.
It was anticipation of what they were
It
doing.
had to have it if it had certain types of facilities. For instance, an irrigation system would require cross connection control. An outdoor swimming pool
Hot
would
tubs.
require, hot tubs require them. There's certain things that you have which do trigger the requirement, but not just a single family dwelling.
Correct, and there are cities that do have that, although when they have that, when they go over above and beyond the OAR, then the city's responsible for that device, for the maintenance of it, the testing of it, the installation of it. So that is a cost to the city, and that's one of the reasons why I personally would like to get rid of it, because it costs my department about 10 grand a year.
Yeah, don't get me wrong,
They have
I'd
to
love
test
to
it
get rid of
annually,
them.
right?
Have to be tested annually, yeah.
Well, with that, going back to page 4, item G, I think we got a problem. 'Cause I'm not paying it right
right?
now.
Property owner's not gonna do anything more?
Well, I think what Kai is saying is that the city has not been enforcing that as to as to cross-connection controls that are not required,
Correct.
but you have been enforcing it as to cross-connection controls that are required.
Per the state of Oregon, they have to be tested. If they're in, they have to be tested. So currently, the city is
But
funding
are you,
that.
for ones that are required to have them, you're not paying to test those?
Yes, we
Well,
are.
there's no reason for you to be doing that.
No, there's not.
And so, maybe one thing that council could consider is, one, eliminating the requirement for having it, right?
Yes.
And second,
If you do.
if you are required to have it, requiring it to be tested by the property owner, not by the city.
Well, that's what this is
That's
saying.
what that's saying, and I don't know why that hasn't been
And-
the case.
I get bills on my door once a year and some little guy comes down the street.
It's
doing it.
because, like I said, on page 5, all new construction shall be installed. And that's the part that we need to strike, because I can't differentiate between, unless we have someone inspect every home, I can't differentiate between a legal one and a Sheridan enforced one.
Well, but as you do get involved in properties, be they commercial or industrial, for instance, those are not, those are
Correct.
usually required. And as you have experience with certain properties and discover that they are required to have one, they could potentially go off your list of the city,
That's exactly right.
so you can distinguish between them.
And at that point, there's a 3-phase process for this I have set up. I am not exactly sure what I'm going to do about those particular assemblies. What I am sure about is I'm going to enforce the commercial and industrial this summer. That's already started, because they're required to have them. The residential ones, I'm going to start next year. In between now and then, I have to get a full inventory and inspection on every one of those. Then next year, I can start to enforce the residential.
For the ones that are required to have it.
Exactly. So that's kind of the change out. I did have someone coming in, but Mary Howell works for BMI. She does a lot of legislation for this in Salem and in Washington DC. I've had her scheduled twice and she's missed both times. But I think with those particular assemblies, she'll be able to walk us through the steps on what to do about them. It will ultimately be up to the homeowner, because these installations are behind the meter. So anything behind the meter is private. So these installations by plumbing code belong to the homeowner. We just happen to be paying for the tests.
And required them to be put in at the time of construction.
Correct, which makes us liable for
Well, what you
testing.
can, I think one of the things you can say is, you can send a letter to people that you've been doing the testing for, saying, we're no longer going to be paying for the test, but if you continue to have this, you will have to have it tested, but you can remove it if you wish.
Well, I completely agree. I think
If
there's
they're-
gonna be-
Why would I have to remove it?
Because if it's there, it has to be
If
tested.
it's there, well, you wouldn't have to remove it, it's just that it still has to be tested, and if you choose to have one,
Where in the law does it say that if I have one,
that's clearly in the OARs, that they have to be tested.
They have to be tested.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
How does it get removed and how much does that cost?
Well, that's where I'm at. See, that's where I'm at. That's why I want to talk to Mary about it. And I'm gonna bring Mary down and talk to the council to give us an idea.
He is in the
because-
same neighborhood as him, there's one on my house too,
Yeah,
so that would be a concern for
Because
me.
So what
she
do you
has
do-
dealt
what you-
with this more than anybody else.
What you
in the
want to
state
do
of
is,
Oregon.
one, stop exacerbating the problem by not requiring it to be on houses that don't need it, right? And then two, figure out which houses are required to have it so that you can not be paying for them. And then three, how do you deal with the ones where they don't have to have it,
Exactly.
right? And what kind of choices can you give the property owner?
I was told, when you built the houses, you have to have it put in.
I have
The
done
city
that.
told me. Now the city says, you don't have to have it, but if you don't remove it, you're gonna have to test it. I didn't create the problem. The other people in the 60 homes in my subdivision and the other subdivisions didn't create the problem. So now you're gonna give me the bill to fix the problem that somebody made 20 years ago.
Well, obviously, that's a council policy decision you're gonna have to make. Is the council willing to continue testing those ad infinitum? Or alternatively, another alternative is the city can go take it out,
Exactly.
where it's not required, and then there won't be any more testing. That's another, those are the alternatives you're wanting to have discussion about.
Or we can continue to pay for them.
Yeah, that's another alternative, is you can just do what you're doing.
But right now, you've got
Do a
3 of
cost
the council
analysis on that
members.
first.
Yeah,
You got 3 of the council,
Four
5
sons in that.
of the council members that have had something forced on them.
But it will
that
affect
area.
the whole
Yeah.
city.
Okay, it's a conflict of interest, you can't vote on it.
That's what I'm saying, he's the only one that can vote.
Right.
No, I think,
No,
I
actually,
think
my
when
son
you're,
has one.
when you're the member of a large class like
Right,
this, you're not
exactly.
gonna conflict it out.
Well, I think the logical thing to do here is to take a step back here. First of all, I think that there's some steps we need to take. Maybe give a little bit of history and see what the cost analysis would be to, first of all, look into changing this to say, okay, this new construction, unless it's commercial or whatever the requirements are that they have to have it. Okay. Look at what it would take to, change that. And then also look at a cost analysis. Is it gonna be cheaper in the long run to actually continue to pay for these, to be tested every year, or to just have them removed?
I think I can pretty
That
much
would be-
guarantee it's gonna be cheaper to have them
Have them
take it out.
Yeah, over the
So,
long run.
I threw out there that you could leave it the way it is. I would strongly recommend that you do not though, because could be litigation
Right.
about who's responsible for that unit. And if it
Well, I
does
think if it's
fa- if
something
it
that's-
does fail at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, if it's something that's not required, why should we continue to pay for this testing when it's not even required?
Well, at some point, the council in 1993 thought it was a good idea. So I don't
Or at
think
least the
anybody was-
consultants did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone voted for it at some point, the
Yeah,
council
it-
voted
it
for
was- it was
I don't know what the
legislative.
circumstances were.
I can tell you what it was, because I argued whether I needed one or wanted one, and the city never put one in for the funeral home for years, because if they did, the flow wasn't good enough to run my equipment. It was anticipation at that point, because legislation was all saying, this is what we're gonna do. And we didn't want to draft the whole damn thing and leave one piece out of it, so it was put in there and done, and then it changed. That's why it was there, probably ill-advised, but when everything was moving this direction, 100 miles an hour, was no reason to assume that it wasn't gonna be there. That's, in a nutshell, that's what that was. Not a good reason, but that's what it was.
So Kai, would you like this done in 2 steps? You wanna remove the obligation to put it on all the new houses first, and then look at what to do with the ones it's on? Or-
Yeah,
or
I'm
you
not-
wanna
I'm
wait-
not gonna make
You want
any
the council to wait until it's talked to?
I'd like to strike item O out of the installation requirements, because that is definitely.
That's
not
the
new.
source of the problem.
That has never been
That's
in
the
the
source of the
OAR, and it should not.
Perpetuates the problem.
It
it makes it
definitely
wrong.
makes
Yeah.
us liable.
So,
Well, I guess what I'm hearing you say is all you gotta do is come back with a recommendation from staff to Frank when he's back, functioning, whether it's home or not, and we can put that on the agenda and take action on those things. So I don't think we need to really go into it anymore. It's pretty clear what we need to do, and we'll
And
just
then the
get
rest
it
of-
on the agenda so we can take
the
appropriate action.
rest of it, I think would be a good idea to have the BMI consultant come talk to the
Yeah.
council.
Yeah.